Welcome, and today I'm going to talk to you about the artillery hurricane. So basically, this hurricane, I think, is definitely the most underestimated fit for the hurricane. Everyone fits autocannon to the hurricanes, pretty much. And the main reason for that is just because, it's got good anti-support DPS, it's got great tracking, etc. It's got 2 medium newts. But the main downsides of a autocannon fit hurricane is that they've got terrible damage projection. They do nothing past 30 kilometers. If you engage an autocannon hurricane, if you just kite at 25k plus, the damage is mitigated so much that he's not doing much at all. And basically an artillery fit does more damage past 13 kilometers, and also it tracks 50% better than most Tier 3 battlecruisers. And the combination of small newts and warriors and the tracking and the alpha strike of the artillery makes it decent enough against frigates, although you are quite vulnerable against some frigates that ends up getting a close orbit on you. But the trick with the artillery hurricane is to try and kill them before they can get a close orbit. And the combination of the decent enough tracking, the alpha strike, and the damage range makes this a possibility. If you can actually one-shot so many tacklers at 50 or 40k while they're making their approach, even if they're at an angle. And if you miss your shots, you just simply warp off. Another, big benefit for the Hurricane is that it's got Tier 2 battlecruiser effective hit points. It's got basically nearly twice as much EHP than a Talos or Tornado. And I guess it's a bit like a cross between a Tier 2 battlecruiser and a Tier 3 battlecruiser. I mean, damage projection is, a bit similar. DPS is of course less, but you got the EHP of a Tier 2 battlecruiser to go with it. But obviously you've got this, you've got the Alpha Strike going with it as well, which adds a bit of a unique role to it when it comes to killing tackle. It's probably the only ship that you can solo in without much problems, that can actually kill tacklers in the manner that it does. I mean, not many other ships completely depend on one-shotting a ship at 50k. Another thing is that you can actually do this Hurricane fit with just Tech 1 guns. I mean, a low skill point character could potentially do this. I mean, and if you do end up going with Tech 1 named guns, then that means you can use your power grade rig for another tanking rig, so it's not a complete loss. So yeah, this is a really skill point friendly ship as well. So for these series of fights, I decided to go to CR Dash. It's only 3 jumps away from EC Dash, and at the time of the video, EC Dash was completely dead, so there was no reason for me to be there. So I went to CR Dash, and CR Dash is owned by an alliance called Get Off My Lawn. They're quite an old alliance now, I think about 3 years or so, and they're usually quite a lot of fun. They've been living in this system for a while, and they mainly just live that they do anomalies there, etc. But sometimes they will form up a gang for you if you go there. Just make sure you don't bring too much. But if you're solo, they do tend to fight at times. So I jumped in, I ran my system scanner as soon as I can, and then as the results came in, I immediately got a hit on the Mikhail, and I got a 5-degree scan on the anomaly the Mikhail was in as well. Like, the first anomaly I scanned, this Mikhail was in it. So, I walked to it. But he just left. I got really unlucky. I mean, I got unlucky, but I did get really lucky as well. But it's always worth checking anomalies for people that are ratting, because, sometimes you do actually get something. And sometimes the fight will escalate as well, especially if you get a ship like a Mikhail, because they're going to come in and help it. So after that, when there's nothing to do, when you don't know where the targets are, the best thing to do is just go to the station. I mean, there's usually something going on at the station. Best way to get something going is just to go to the station and then just see what happens. So in a system where there's 26 in local and the majority of them are docked, the station is a great place for a fight to come from. But it is worth noting that you shouldn't really hang around the station for too long. I mean, I really don't suggest hanging around for over 10 minutes or so, because at one point they were just going to form up something specifically designed for you. It's much better to try and make a spontaneous sort of engagement occur. It's definitely better. So signable on docks, vagabond on close range scanner. At this point I'm thinking, that something might actually happen, and it's definitely being reinforced by the fact that the vagabond just walked to a ping spot, and I'm just hoping that the vagabond comes in. He walks to the station at 0 though, but he immediately turns around and he's burning directly for me at this point. I also switched to fusion because fusion is generally the best against Attack 2 Mimeta ships. And I just overheat everything. And when it comes to killing vagabonds, etc., it's all about trying to kill them before they actually warp out. And of course, the best thing to do against them is try to keep traversal as low as possible. You have to burn directly away from them. You have to keep traversal as low as possible. At one point, he's burning away from me, so I have to turn around. I have to turn around, and at this point, I'm giving an estimate of where he's going. You can see my hurricane pointing in the direction towards where he's going to go towards. That just keeps traversal even lower than approaching him, and it also means I end up being closer to him. Anyway, I'm obviously overheating my MVD way too much here to try and keep in range of the vagabond, and he does actually die. But my macro drive goes offline, and the best thing to do in this case is just to hit warp immediately in a direction that you're generally aligned to. Because if your current speed is higher than your max speed, then you're always going to go into warp. A warp disruptor will not cancel your warp. And what just happened there is a great example of that. So that clip illustrates a few points, and the first one is that you should always scan for anomalies in the sort of system that has people living in it. And there's quite a few systems that has a lot of people ratting in them, and you can just check the map for them. And obviously you are going to fail a lot of the time, but it doesn't take much effort, and you can do it while searching for other fights as well. And the other one is just that you are going to get most of your fights from spontaneous sort of situations like what happened on the station. And when it comes to fighting fast ships and a ship like a Hurricane, you need to always be a step ahead of your game. You need to always try and keep your traversal as low as possible. But I guess that point isn't that important because it's fairly obvious. But another point that not everyone is aware of is that sometimes if you initiate warp and then your current speed for whatever reason becomes much higher than your max potential speed, then you're always going to go into warp. I mean, the warp will never cancel until your current speed matches your high speed. So in this situation, I was going, like 1.5k a second or so. My crew drove offline. I hit warp, and then I would have needed to reach 200 ms or whatever for the warp to cancel. And you can't really. It's not an exploit, by the way. CCP has said it's not an exploit, and mainly because you can't control it, and you need to initiate warp before you get warp scrambled. Otherwise, it doesn't work at all. You can't control this mechanic at all. It's rarely up to your advantage, and I'm just showing it mainly just because I think it's quite cool, and it will save you a few times. Once in a blue moon, it will save you. My Hyperion once got saved by this mechanic when I was pointed by a heck. But yeah, it's not something you can reliably do. But when your macro does go offline, just remember, okay, hit warp as soon as I can. Just hit warp in something that you're generally aligned to, and you might be able to get out. By the way, the reason I warped out in that case was because it was a signable that tackled me. I could easily handle a signable, but if Dominic started undocking, the Dominics could have warped to the signable, etc. And without the macro drive, I lost full mobility. I wasn't mobile at all anymore. So that was the main reason I decided to do it. So I went back to Empire, I repaired my ship, and then I came back. Same process as earlier. I walked to the station at 100k, saw some activity. I'm just using this rack to give me a good warp in closer to them now. It's always worth looking out for racks, cans, etc. because they can be very, very useful at times. So I walked to the station, and then an Itron also walked to the station. when a ship warps to a station, sometimes they land outside dock range, not by far, like 2k or so, and that gives you, a few seconds opportunity to get a shot in and kill it, and that's what just happened. I, got a lock on the Itron before it could dock, and I one-shotted it basically. At this point I'm waiting for the Thrasher to become lockable, but I killed the capsule while waiting, because this Thrasher is waiting out his invulnerability timer. So I'm just trying to go for a kill on this Thrasher, and he becomes lockable here. Notice how my mouse is on my overview close to the Thrasher. That's because the moment I get lock on him, I click on him and then I hit F4, so I get as much damage on him as soon as possible. I mean, you can focus your lock on a target through your overview by just clicking. Anyway, this Cerberus just aggroed me, and this is a great opportunity for me to try and take. I can put a lot of damage on the Cerberus without having to commit myself. Maelstrom and docks, so I try and get a bit of traversal, and then of course the Maelstrom docks, and then I deactivate macro grab. At this point I'm just trying to kill this Cerberus before he tries to de-aggro. Look at the Cerberus though, he's not moving at all, he's not doing anything, he's just sitting there being useless, spamming the dock button. I mean, if that was you should be just burning directly away from me right now, spamming warp. As you saw, the Drake aggroes, but I'm still good to engage the Cerberus. I'm in a perfect position right now. I get the Cerberus kill and then I burn away, as I'm not taking too much damage yet. And this signable starts burning towards me, and at this point what's going through my mind is, oh, maybe I can burn outside Drake range, and then perhaps the signable will go for me, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm just going to focus on killing ECM drones for now. So every single kill I got then, I don't think it would have been possible to have in a autocannon Hurricane. I mean, in the case of the Itron and Thrasher, that's obvious, they just got alpha striked. But in the case of the Cerberus, I would have had to kite, outside 10k, and, so I'd be about 20k on the safe side in an autocannon Hurricane, and I'm pretty sure that I would not be able to put enough damage at that range to kill the Cerberus in time. So, I mean, having an artillery Hurricane does open a lot of opportunities, and it makes kills like much more of an opportunistic thing, but that in itself is a lot of fun. Anyway, so what happened after this fight was that the Maelstrom was artillery fitted, and he just shot me every single time I tried to do anything. And with a combination of Drakes and also the Cerberus switched to Nighthawk, I was not able to stay on grid with them for long. So I wasn't able to get any kills from them, and I tried splitting them up in the system, but they would not separate. So what I tried to do was I ended up warping to the G-M gate, and I was just hoping that I could use that to separate them, because for some reason, well, I guess it's not really that surprising, but battleships hate following you to stargates, while other ships seem to be fine for it. So what I did was I just warped to G-M, jumped through, then I immediately started lying towards 9.3 PI. It's worth remembering that when you're warping to a gate and when you jump through, they're assuming that you're leaving. They're assuming that you're completely disengaging. Then they rarely assume you're trying to split them up. Anyway, in this case, I decided to warp to the gate as soon as the first one decloaked, and I'm just hopeful that they actually follow me. But yeah, it is. I mean, if you see a person warp to a planet, a lot of people will just think, okay, he's trying to separate us, which is, often true. But like I said, in this case, warping to a gate, it just makes you look like you're running, especially if I'm running through a route that will take me to Empire, because I can enter Empire from 9.3 PI through to Zendaya. Saruman even, not Zendaya, and I can wrap there, and that's the place I went to wrap earlier. Anyway, so signable Drake Nighthawk on scan. Kill targets here is the signable, and the Nighthawk, Drake, and Onyx can project damage to me till 70k, but they're probably not aware of this. I mean, in their mind, they know they can shoot me, probably. I mean, they're thinking right now, okay, we're good, we could still apply damage to him. But the signable's just chilling there, he's not moving at all. So they're probably discussing amongst themselves right now if the signable should burn for me or not. So the Drake and Nighthawk starts shooting me, I burn away, negating all of the damage pretty much because of the range I'm at, and the signable picks it up, signable starts burning for me. And it is, I mean, I should not try and evade all of the damage because, I mean, I should try and keep them as keen as possible because I've got no problem in killing this signable in a brawl, and I can easily, I mean, the signable is very, very unlikely to have any tackle modules, so I could easily get burn outside range of the Nighthawk and Drake if needed. But I, go with the defensive route, and I'm just focusing on keeping my transversal as low as possible at this point. And another thing is that look on the overview. Only the Nighthawk has me locked. Okay, Nighthawk doesn't have me locked anymore. Basically, their gang should have been telling the signable what the hell is going on. The immediate moment they lost the lock or they noticed they're not doing any damage. I mean, they should have, told the signable, okay, he's on his own, but they don't. But I guess the signable should have figured that out as well, considering, look on my shield, I'm obviously not getting shot by anything else. And to add to that, I think the signable burned out his macro-operative. He's not moving at all right now, he's just low-boating. So he's just, sitting duck right now, and he's just going to die in a fire. And, it's no embarrassment on my part though, because people like that is what gives us kills, and people like that exist all over EVE. And it is worth noting that when you're solo and when you're fighting a gang, most of your kills do end up coming from them making mistakes. There's some times when they don't do any mistakes, but to be honest, the majority of the time completely stems from the enemy gang making a mistake and you exploiting it. That's the important part, I guess. Learning how to exploit these mistakes to the maximum. So from their group, I killed a Vagabond, Cerberus, Signable, Rifter, Itron, Thrasher. It's not that bad considering I'm a one person. But it does illustrate how effective the artillery hurricane is at exploiting the enemy making mistakes. I mean, it's such a good ship to be fair, and it's definitely underappreciated. I mean, look on every single kill I got there. Perhaps the Vagabond and the Signable kill would have been perfectly possible in another type of setup or ship, but the other kills, the attributed hurricane did play their parts there. It's also worth noting that the main risk of a artillery hurricane is orbiting frigates, but a lot of people don't assume your artillery fit, and the autocannon fit is notorious for being able to kill frigates, etc. So a lot of frigate pilots is wary of a autocannon hurricane, and they know that your range is quite terrible, and usually they don't expect you to one-shot them because of how rare or solo artillery hurricanes are. But for the last fight, there's three main ways, common ways of trying to separate the enemy. There's on-grid separation, and I guess on-grid separation is just simply burning away from the main cluster of the gang and just hoping one of their ships follow you. For example, the last phase of that signable kill you just saw. But on-grid separation becomes hard when there is a lot of long-range DPS, or if it's just simply too risky. And in my case, it was just too much long-range DPS. Drake, Nighthawk, etc., and Maelstrom from the main system. And the step after that is to try and separate them through warping around, etc. You may have seen that at the end of the Rupture video that I did. And if that doesn't work, then you've got the whole different system separation thing going on by making it obvious you're trying to leave the system and that you're warping to a Stargate. So when something fails, there's usually an extra option for you to try and separate the enemy, and you should always remember this. But usually the trick is just try and look as vulnerable as possible, make it appear as if you're running away.